Okay, so hi there, welcome back to the workshop. Today we're looking at a Denman chair for the 1960s, so the chair frame, quite famous. This one was found in a junk shop, but by a collector and retailer of period furniture. She only managed to get the one, and she's informed me that she's seen a set of 4 go for £2,000 to £3,000. Hence her interest in getting the chair and getting it restored. So when it came in, there was a lot of splits that had been badly glued. All of the joints were loose, and there was cracks where the wood was sitting up above the rest of it, really in quite bad condition. So the first thing then, when I asked how we're going to repair this chair, the best option is to take the chair apart and rebuild it, because it gives you access to all the areas, so on and so forth, and it makes it easier to fix the joints. However, to do that, the first thing you need to do is stress test the chair. What I mean by that is, if we're to take it apart, put enough pressure on the joint to try and pull it apart and see what happens. If in this case, where it's been glued very badly, it starts pulling the wood off another joining section, for example down this leg, it could rip a big section out, then the answer is not to take it apart. What you have to do instead is slightly open the joints very carefully and get some adhesive in there. We use PVA, wood's flat jointing together. PVA is the ideal thing if it's of good quality. So all the joints were restuck with PVA. We managed to force glue into each one where necessary, and then the chair's fully clamped, both sideways and front to back. Overnight, 24 hours, then we start sanding down the chair, and we're using hand sandpaper, we're using emery cloth, we're using a Works Sonic Crafter, and we even used a detail sander, depending on what's appropriate for the part of the chair that we're working on. Once we've sanded it all down, we've cleaned it all up, and then we've got sections where there's big lumps and holes out of the wood, big cracks on the surface which need to be filled, so on and so forth. So to fill those areas, we used a combination of hard wax, 2-pack filler. We made some filler out of the sawdust that came from the sanding and mixed it with PVA in some cases. So 3 kinds of different fillers we used to work on the gaps that appeared on the chair. We then got to realise what finish we're going to put on the chair, because that determines what colour the filler needs to be, so it blends in once it's complete. So at that point we test the chair, and we did 3 or 4 samples of some stain finishes, lacquer varnish, and then a couple of oil finishes. We had 6 different finishes, probably on the back of the leg. The best one that turned out was an oil finish. So we sand all those examples off, and then we put some oil on a nice part of the chair, and we see what colour that's going to make it turn out as. We then have the basis over what colour our fillers need to be, so we can mix and use them accordingly, or stain them. In some cases we stained them. We had a bit of solvent based stain just to blend it in some areas so it matched the rest of the frame as much as possible. Complete all the filling, and sand it down again, because you overfill and then you sand to get it flush. Touch up where necessary with different colours, and then we start applying the oil. In this case the arms are a lot lighter than legs, because it's different cuts of wood, so we used 2 different oils. One was just natural and one had a tint in it, and we used up to 5 coats from different areas of the chairs to blend it all together and bring it to this near as possible to the original finish, with all the gaps filled. All of the structure is now solid on the chair, etc., and it's ready to go. So it's one of those jobs: patience, use different methods, and just keep working away until you get to the outcome that you're looking for. And that is your Denman designer chair from the 1960s.
Can you tell us about some things that can potentially go wrong? For example, one thing I know I was doing with it, when you're gluing the joints, how can you avoid any of that glue showing up? Because that's the last thing money you want, isn't it? Any glue showing up there.
So yeah, it had been glued all over previously to try and strengthen it, but the person didn't have clamps, didn't open the joint at all to try and get the glue inside it. So when you're putting adhesive on, you have to have something at hand to clean excess glue off. Although it sets clear, if you end up having to peel it off a joint once it's dry, that's going to leave a mark every single time. So to stop that from happening, once you clamp it and the glue starts squeezing out the joint, it's indicating that it's filled properly and it's going to be a successful fix. You've got to have a cloth handy and it's got to be wet. That will remove the glue. If you just use a cloth to wipe it off, you're just smearing it on the surface, it'll appear as a light stain. So you need to be taking the glue off while it's not been set, using a cloth, and it's got to be a wet cloth, and that avoids any problems with the glue leaving, you know, telltale marks on the wood and making it look horrible. This had loads of glue all over it, but that was taken off with a very, very fine chisel, very, very slowly, prior to it being sanded and prepared for the rest of the repair and restoration. Other things that can go wrong, I probably mentioned them again. Stress test is important, because you can break parts of it and make it worse than it would have been actually just doing the actual repair.
What about with the clamps? Is there a danger the clamps can sometimes leave a bit of mark on there if you've got them sitting on the wood for a while? Yeah,
so most clamps do have kind of rubber feet on them, but they're not ideal. These have got rubber feet on them, for example, but underneath that rubber foot is 2, 3, 4 hard metal plastic edges, which, given enough pressure, will push through the rubber and potentially leave marks. So yeah, bit of cardboard or a soft wooden block, something like that. Quite often I use cardboard, so when you're clamping, you don't leave those clamp marks on it. But yeah, that happens quite frequently if you don't prepare by doing that.
Brilliant.
Okay.